Los Angeles is burning. Not just in the way that cities are consumed by flames in movies or headlines. This fire is alive, raging with a ferocity that feels almost sentient, devouring everything in its path. As I write this, Los Angeles lies in ruins, blanketed in ash and choking smoke. The fire hasn't stopped. It hasn't slowed. And what I experienced in the heart of it, what Jesus revealed to me, is something the world needs to hear. My name is Phil Garrett. I'm 37 years old, a firefighter based in Sacramento, California. I've seen my share of wildfires, but nothing prepared me for January 10th, 2025. That day started like any other, with a quiet breakfast at the station and small talk with my team. When the alarm wailed, we suited up, thinking it would be another routine call. After all, Los Angeles isn't a stranger to wildfires. But as we sped toward the city, I couldn't shake the unease settling in my chest. When we arrived, the scene was chaos. Flames towered like giants, roaring with an unnatural intensity. Planes screamed overhead, dumping suppressant, while on the ground, we threw everything we had at the blaze: water, fire retardants, sheer willpower. It didn't matter. The fire seemed to laugh at our efforts, flaring up in areas we'd already drenched, leaping over roads and streams as if mocking the barriers we relied on. I remember standing near a line of trees, trying to cut off the fire's path. The heat was unbearable, pressing against my gear like a smothering hand. My partner, Jack, was a few feet away, shouting over the roar of the flames. His face was streaked with ash, his voice raw. "Phil, it's like this fire's alive," he yelled. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mind was racing, trying to process what we were facing. The fire didn't just consume, it pursued. It moved with a speed and unpredictability that defied everything we'd been trained to expect. At one point, I glanced upward, and the sight stole my breath. The sky wasn't just orange, it was ablaze. It was as if the sun had been dethroned, replaced by the fire's relentless fury. We worked non-stop, rotating shifts, calling in reinforcements, pushing every resource to its limit. But the fire refused to yield. Hours blurred into an endless battle. The exhaustion was crushing, but we couldn't stop. Not with so many lives and homes at stake. The fire raged with a ferocity that defied reason, as if it were alive. Not just alive, but drawing strength from something unseen, something dark and unrelenting. Every flare-up seemed calculated, as if mocking us for our futile efforts. Even the air itself felt heavier, oppressive, like a thick curtain of dread was draped over Los Angeles. It was more than the smoke. It was as though the fire carried a sinister presence, one that whispered chaos and destruction into the very fabric of the city. At night, when the team stole brief moments to rest, we'd huddle together in silence, too drained to speak. The fire's roar echoed in our ears even then. Each of us wrestled with the same unspoken question. What is this? I couldn't shake the feeling that we were up against something more than just nature's wrath. It felt calculated, intentional. The fire wasn't just destroying everything in its path. It was consuming with purpose. And that purpose felt evil. We threw everything we had at it: water, fire retardants, every ounce of strength in our bodies, but every effort seemed in vain. Every hour, the fire grew stronger, as though something unseen was feeding it, urging it forward. Jack wasn't wrong when he said it felt alive. It wasn't just defying logic, it was breaking it, crossing barriers that should have stopped it dead in its tracks. Streams, roads, entire swaths of land we had soaked earlier were engulfed again within minutes. Then came the moment that changed everything. We were stationed near a critical section of the fire, fighting desperately to stop it from crossing into a heavily populated area. The heat was unbearable, like standing inside an inferno. Every breath burned my lungs. Every step felt heavier than the last. My strength was waning, but I pushed on. I had to. This wasn't just another wildfire. It was a battle for lives. Suddenly, my body betrayed me. It started subtly, a wave of dizziness, my legs trembling under me. I dismissed it as exhaustion, but then it hit me like a freight train. My lungs seized, refusing to draw in air. I dropped to the ground, gasping, coughing, clawing at the choking smoke around me. Everything blurred, and the roar of the fire faded. Silence. When I opened my eyes, the fire was gone. The chaos, the suffocating heat, everything had vanished. I wasn't in Los Angeles anymore. Instead, I found myself in a strange place, suspended in a realm that felt like it was caught between worlds. It was eerily still, yet the air buzzed with an unseen tension. That's when I noticed them. Dark, shadowy figures surrounded me, motionless but brimming with menace. They weren't human, there was no mistaking that. Their forms were shrouded in an unnatural darkness that seemed to drink in the faint light of the realm. Their eyes, or whatever they used to see, were fixed on the horizon, as though watching something unfold. I could feel their presence pressing down on me, heavy and suffocating. They didn't move, didn't speak, yet their intent was clear. They were overseeing the fire, ensuring it continued its unrelenting march. As I tried to make sense of where I was, I noticed the environment around me. It looked like a courtroom, but not one like we have on Earth. The walls were made of something unearthly, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The ground beneath me wasn't solid. It shifted and shimmered like molten glass. Rows of figures were seated around me, their faces hidden in shadows, but their presence was undeniable. It was as though their very being commanded attention. They weren't ordinary spectators. Their stillness held authority, their silence thundered with significance. At the center of it all were two figures. One was radiant, shining with a brilliance so pure it was almost blinding. It wasn't just the light that caught my attention. It was the warmth and peace it carried, a kind of love that felt tangible, like a hand resting gently on my shoulder. The other figure stood in stark contrast, cloaked in shadows so deep they seemed to absorb the very light around them. Its presence drained warmth from the space, leaving behind an unsettling chill. I didn't need anyone to tell me who they were. I knew. The radiant figure was an angel, Los Angeles' advocate, standing on behalf of the city. The dark figure was a demon, an accuser, presenting its case for destruction. Even without a single word exchanged, I understood what they represented. Mercy and judgment, light and darkness, life and death. The atmosphere was suffocating, both physically and spiritually. The gravity of the moment settled over me like a heavy cloak. My knees buckled under the weight, but somehow I remained standing, frozen, unable to move or speak. In the silence, a voice spoke to me, not loud, not harsh, but clear and unshakable. "The demon is claiming legal grounds," it said. My heart sank as the words registered. The sins of the people have given it the right to bring destruction. Though I couldn't hear the arguments being made, I could feel them. They were visceral, undeniable. The demon pointed to evidence, images, records, actions, and words. Scenes flashed before me, moments of mockery, defiance, rebellion against God. Laws and policies that directly defied his will. Choices made collectively and individually. It was as if the very soul of the city was laid bare, every transgression recorded and presented with precision. But the angel didn't waver. It stood firm, a pillar of light in the midst of the darkness, calling for mercy. It reminded the court of God's grace and love. It spoke of those who still believed, who prayed, who sought him with sincerity, even if their numbers were few. The tension in the room was unbearable, like the charged air before a thunderstorm. Every moment stretched endlessly, yet I couldn't look away. I wanted to scream, to beg, to do anything to stop what was happening, but I was powerless. All I could do was watch, trembling under the immense weight of what was unfolding before me. In that moment, a truth pierced through me, a realization so deep it felt like it was carved into my very soul. It wasn't just about the fire. The fire was merely a symptom, a reflection, a physical manifestation of something far deeper, far more dangerous. This was about choices. It was about consequences. It was about the unseen spiritual realities that influence the physical world. And I was standing in the middle of it, caught between forces so vast, so powerful, that my mind struggled to comprehend them. The fire I had been battling with every ounce of my strength wasn't just flames. It was a battle between mercy and judgment, between light and darkness. And the outcome was anything but certain. The demon's case was merciless, its arguments relentless. It moved with a precision that was chilling, as though it had rehearsed this moment for ages. Every point it made struck like a blow, cold, calculated, and steeped in undeniable conviction. It declared its right to continue the destruction, presenting its evidence with an eerie sense of authority. Yet, amid the onslaught, the angel remained steadfast. Its light never dimmed, unwavering like a lighthouse in the midst of a violent storm. It wasn't just a beacon of hope, it was a testimony to God's mercy. In its stillness, there was a power that no accusation could shake. This angel was a reminder that the God who created the universe still listens to the cries of his people, no matter how faint or few. Then, everything changed in an instant. The courtroom vanished, and I found myself somewhere utterly different. The air here was alive, pure, and infused with a peace that transcended anything I'd ever known. It wasn't just quiet, it was as if the very essence of the place was designed to soothe the soul. As I tried to absorb my surroundings, I noticed a figure approaching. At first, it was hard to see, as though the very air around him shimmered with an unearthly brilliance. When he drew nearer, I couldn't help but fall to my knees. It was him. His presence was unlike anything I had ever encountered. It wasn't just powerful, it was comforting, deeply and profoundly. His gaze met mine, and for a moment, it felt as though time itself had paused. His eyes weren't just looking at me, they were looking through me, into the depths of my soul. There was no hiding, no pretense. His voice came next, and when it did, it wasn't just sound, it was a force that wrapped around me like a warm embrace. It carried weight, a deep, resonant truth that pierced my heart. "The fire started on legal grounds," he said, each word striking like thunder. "The sins of Los Angeles have given the enemy a foothold." The truth of his words hit me like a tidal wave. He wasn't just recounting facts. He was unveiling the reality of what I had seen earlier. "They have mocked me," he continued, his tone steady yet sorrowful. "With their words, their actions, and their laws, they have declared they don't need me. They have turned away from the one who sustains them." Images flashed in my mind, vivid and unrelenting. The arrogance, the pride of a city so consumed by its own achievements that it had forgotten the mercy that made it all possible. Skyscrapers, bustling streets, lavish lifestyles, all built on the foundation of a collective rejection of God. "They have embraced immorality," Jesus said, his voice tinged with sorrow. "They have created policies to silence the truth, to remove my name and my ways from their lives. My people, the church, have grown lukewarm. They have stopped calling on me with passion and sincerity. They have chosen comfort over commitment." Each word carried the weight of divine heartbreak. It wasn't anger I heard, it was sadness, profound and consuming. He wasn't condemning, he was revealing, peeling back the layers to expose the truth. "They have forgotten where their power lies," he said, his gaze never leaving mine. "Because of these things, the enemy has found legal grounds to bring destruction upon the city." I felt a lump rise in my throat. The enormity of what he was saying, the clarity with which he laid it out, was almost too much to bear. But then his tone shifted. "I am a God of justice," he said, his words firm yet tender. "But I am also a God of mercy." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. Every word Jesus spoke cut through me like a double-edged sword, revealing truths I could no longer ignore. His voice carried no anger, only truth, piercing yet strangely gentle. Even as the weight of his words pressed on my soul, hope began to rise within me. It wasn't an empty, fleeting hope. It was steady, alive, like the first rays of sunlight after a long night. "If my people rise up and pray," Jesus said, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that felt eternal, "if they turn back to me, I will heal their land. I will end this destruction and bring restoration. But they must choose me. They must seek me with all their hearts." As he spoke, I felt something I couldn't explain. Warmth filled me, not just around me but within. It was as if hope itself was being poured into my very being. Every fear, every doubt seemed to fade away under the power of his presence. Then he began to share truths, profound, earth-shattering truths. Each word carried weight, not just in sound but in meaning. It was as though his voice itself was alive, weaving together threads of understanding that pierced the deepest parts of my soul. "My justice is perfect," he said, his tone steady yet urgent. "It does not waver. Consequences are a part of that justice. But mercy is always available to those who seek it." His eyes, filled with sadness but also love, searched mine. "The wildfire consuming this city isn't my desire," he explained. "It's the result of choices made over time." The words hit me hard. Images flooded my mind. The pride, the arrogance, the outright rejection of God's ways in exchange for fleeting pleasures and self-sufficiency. I saw it clearly now. The spiritual foundation of the city had been eroded by years of neglect, rebellion, and compromise. "But there is hope," Jesus continued, his voice steady but urgent. "Restoration is possible, but it requires more than words. It demands genuine repentance and fervent prayer, a deep turning of hearts back to God." I listened, my soul trembling under the weight of his words. This wasn't just about stopping the fire. It was about acknowledging our utter dependence on him. It was about surrendering pride and seeking his guidance wholeheartedly. Jesus paused, and for a moment, I felt as though all of creation held its breath. Then he spoke again, and his words carried a gravity that felt eternal. This isn't just about Los Angeles, he said, his gaze piercing. It's a call to believers everywhere. Change must begin with the church. His voice grew more intense, though still filled with compassion. The wildfire is a spiritual wake-up call. If people continue on this path, the destruction will go far beyond the physical. I felt tears streaming down my face as the truth of his words settled in my heart. This wasn't just about a city or a fire. It was about eternity, about souls, about the direction humanity was heading. And yet, even in the face of such heavy truths, his presence filled me with hope. I felt a pull, sudden and undeniable. The warmth of his presence, the piercing clarity of his words, they began to fade, replaced by a sensation of movement, as though I was being carried through a tunnel of light. The next thing I felt was pain. A sharp, jarring pain in my chest, the sterile smell of antiseptic, the hum of machines, and frantic voices all around me. My eyelids were heavy, but they fluttered open, and I saw the bright fluorescent lights of a hospital ceiling. I was back. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered, "Jesus, thank you." The days that followed were a blur of recovery, but the urgency in my spirit never waned. I couldn't keep silent about what I had seen and heard. This is my plea to you. The wildfire in Los Angeles isn't just a physical disaster. It's a reflection of a much deeper spiritual battle. The flames consuming homes and lives are being fueled by forces beyond the natural. This isn't just about climate change or human error. It's about a city, a nation, and a world that has turned its back on God. But there is hope. This is a call for the church to rise up. It's not just Los Angeles's fight. It's our fight as believers. We are called to stand in the gap for those who cannot, to intercede for mercy where judgment seeks to take hold. God is merciful and just. His heart longs to heal and restore, but we must respond to his call. This isn't about playing church. It's about becoming the church. It's about falling on our knees, repenting, and crying out for our cities, our families, our nation. I saw his heart. I felt his love. And I know that he doesn't desire destruction. He desires restoration. But we have to choose him. We have to seek him with everything we have. If you're hearing this, don't let it pass you by. Start with prayer. Let it start in your own heart, then spread to your home, your community, and beyond. Jesus showed me what could be. The destruction can stop. The restoration can begin. But it starts with us. As I close, I leave you with this. He is waiting, arms open, ready to heal and to save. The question isn't whether he's willing. The question is, are we?